Welcome to the village.
Harmony, peace, love, and respect.
Welcome to the village.
Hey Village, welcome back. If you're new, welcome to your Marriage Village, where I provide resources to foster healthy marriages. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. That's even more important. So that way we can have the information going out and just grow the village. All right. Today we're going to be talking about sex addiction. And what I'm doing for the next several months is bringing in professionals and people who have expertise in certain areas. And so today I have with me a colleague of mine. We've worked together, and I'm really excited to have him, Dr. Christopher Chang. He will be talking about sex addiction and how it affects marriages. So just listen to this. We're hoping and praying that you can take away something that will be helpful for you and your family. And you can share with others too. All right. Christopher, good to see you again.
It's great to see you, and thank you for inviting me, Goma. I'm excited for today's talk.
Yeah, you're so welcome. All right, so let's just jump right into this. I want you to just tell the audience what you do, introduce yourself very briefly, and then we will talk about sex addiction and marriage.
Absolutely. So my name is Dr. Christopher Chang, as Goma has introduced. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist here down in South Florida. I've worked with couples, worked with young adults, worked with teens. I'm also now part of the Bounce team, which is a special program for trauma resolution for youth and adolescent. So I'm excited to be able to just share some of the work that we do, because we recognize mental health is important to learn about, to be able to respond on a timely manner. And I'm just glad that we are able to share the knowledge with everyone.
Very excited to have you. All right, so let's jump right into this. At least let's first define what sexual addiction is. Okay, so what is sexual addiction?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been multiple definitions given throughout, but the one that encapsulates all the components of it is sexual addiction is an intense focus on sexual urges or activities, and that it can cause harm in a person's life or in other areas of an individual's life. And this type of compulsion or these behaviors does not stop without proper intervention. So that's kind of the distinction where it becomes problematic, right? When it becomes an actual addiction.
Mm-hmm. So how can someone know? How would I know if I'm addicted to sex?
Yeah, that's a very key question, because sexual addiction is not a formal diagnosis. It's not something in our diagnostic statistic manual, our DSM, so to speak. A lot of components need to come together for us to recognize. First of all, it has to be destructive. It has to have some sort of harm into a person's health, in a person's relationship, or their careers, or other areas of their lives. And it's this intense need and drive that they would, go out of their way to the degree that they don't think about the things around them, their family, their loved ones, that they would drive and continue to seek out activities or something to satisfy the sexual addiction. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty similar to how one think about substance abuse, right? This doesn't matter the life around them. It doesn't matter who they hurt, that they will continue to focus in order to attain it.
Mm-hmm. So it's more about the urge, and not so much the side effects, right? All of
Correct.
The people who would then be affected by it because I'm doing it.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. So how does it affect marriages? How do you see it show up with your couples?
Absolutely. And a lot of times especially in the work that I'm doing, this comes as a surprise for many, for a partner, when they find out that their partner or their spouse is addicted to sexual activities. And this does not limit itself to cheating or finding, buying sex, going to prostitutes. It also can be a compulsion to use pornography, or compulsion to masturbate, and it really can damage a marriage when it's the secrecy, the deception that entails in maintaining this type of behavior, right? A lot of times, and so it can be very harmful for the spouse who has to now learn how to something that they never knew about their spouse before, and then there's breeds a lot of betrayal, feelings of betrayal, fear, mistrust, anxiety, depression. All of those things can be happening in a marriage, and as you can tell, it's not just the faithful spouse, but also the one who is perpetrating the sexual addiction can also be negatively affected.
Yeah, that's right. Now, does that also speak to intimacy? Does it affect intimacy between the couple?
Yeah, absolutely, it can. And I'm drawing more so from the work that I'm doing.
Yeah.
The literature is only now beginning more and more revealing like what can happen. But
Mhm,
when there's a betrayal, right, a break of trust,
mhm.
it's hard to connect intimately on any level. We're talking about trusting one another at their words and their behaviors, but we're talking about the most vulnerable component of a marriage, of a long-term commitment, right? It's the sexual, the sex that they can share.
Mhm.
If you don't have trust, if there's no communication, it's not going to be good for the intimacy on any level. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And I've also heard some spouses will also say that sometimes it limits how much the person who is using pornography pursues the other person. Are you finding that as well with your clients? Because now they're
Absolutely.
relying on the pornography and they're not turning towards the other person.
Absolutely. And pornography, there's a whole host of literature that shows that pornography and masturbation, it changes a person's neurology as well, and how they're um, almost changes and modifies what the natural design is, that sexual intimacy to be shared between two people. Now they have their a association made of how it's done, the intensity, the sensitivity, all of that is affected, can be affected by by pornography use and masturbation.
Yeah, yeah. So are all sex addicts cheaters?
In a sense, the main component is their deception involved, is their shame, is their secrecy, all of that. Then in that sense, yes, if those things are present, spouses can have finding a hard time to feel safe around a person who continually violates the sanctity of a marriage and the trust and the vows that they made. And in that sense, yes, it could create that effect, even if it's just pornography use, or if the person hasn't sought out another person to have an affair with, or go to prostitute. It still has that ability, not ability, the can traumatize a spouse in a way. And so yeah, cheating, I wouldn't say all of it, but the majority of it feels like that.
Yeah, I hear your little dog in the background. That's fine. Your little baby there. All right. Can women be sex addicts, or is it only men who are sex addicts?
Yeah, we're finding more and more that both can be affected. Both genders, both sexes can be affected. And the guess is right now, statistically speaking, a third of sexual addicts are women, and only about a fifth of them receive treatment.
Wow, that's a big number, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's come a long way, it looks like. And were you able to find any reason why this increase?
Majority of our hypothesis, or the hypothesis in literature, is the ease of accessibility. Internet pornography has just penetrated in anyone's home, the ease for someone to accidentally stumble on it and keep using without being caught has, increased in its capacity. So, and there's also this component where they don't share. People usually don't share about, about their activities. And so it's becoming much more easier to keep it a secret. And it's, almost a justification that I'm not hurting anyone by doing that. And this starts at a much younger age. When I was growing up, pornography was probably accessed more by later teens, but now I'm hearing young children can find access to them accidentally or introduced by others at a much, much younger age.
Wow. So are the signs and symptoms different in men versus women, or is it pretty much the same?
So this, I would say it's a new area. Well, not necessarily new area of research, but the current understanding is that women seek more emotional needs to be met through the sexual addiction, and men seeks more the physical needs to be met. But outside of that, they're very similar in their signs and symptoms that we find. There's this compulsion, there's the anxiety that surrounds it, and there's this the behaviors to hide it from everyone, right?
It seems that the hiding is really the big piece of this. It's how sneaky they are regarding the addiction.
Yeah. As we know, the sexual addiction, pornography use, we're learning more and more that this isn't an emotional issue, because it's the shame that keeps a person from seeking help, a shame that keeps a person from wanting to be open about needing the support, needing help through it all, and the fear of judgment by loved ones, the fear of rejection by others. It's really hard to break. Not impossible, but hard.
Right. So what is it like then to live with someone who's a sex addict?
Yeah, a lot of what I drew from the literature comes from this website called The Fair Recovery and the book Not Just Friends. Spouses are experiencing a lot of the walking on eggshells type of feeling, being hypervigilant. When is my spouse or my partner going to betray me again? There's pain, there's hurt, and there's, again, that huge component. Now, even the spouse who's the faithful one have a hard time sharing this with others, because this is very, very hard, right? It talks about, did I do something wrong? Is there something that I'm not performing well? And then also the person with the addiction is also walking on eggshells. I don't want to hurt my spouse, or I don't know how to talk about this. And it really cuts off the communication. It cuts off the wanting to connect, and just leave them feeling very disconnected in a lot of ways in a home.
So how do you then differentiate between, because it's probably difficult for most people to be able to, say, well, I think my spouse just wants more sex from me, versus my spouse is an addict.
Yeah.
How do you really differentiate those two things?
It's a very, I wouldn't say it's too hard to differentiate. Every person has a different level of sex drive. That's just natural part of being human. We're blessed to, have a unique set of attraction, a unique set of arousal. And it comes to a point when it becomes compulsion. One has experienced the intrusive thoughts and almost feel like if they do not seek out sexual activity to release, that they would they feel this intense anxiety about it, and it drives their behaviors to override logic. That's when we can kind of tell, like, okay, this is beyond just high sexual drive. This person's psyche is not well regulated and feels a high level of distress about it. And so so far that might be the distinction, and when we'll learn more and more as the research continues to evolve around this area of sexual addiction.
So what I'm hearing is, it will almost be something as if maybe the partners are giving you a break, like they're demanding sex at all times, and it's beyond you just being attractive. It is just it's just every time that they want sex, right?
Right, absolutely. And in the typical marriage, as we see, there's still this level of communication. Maybe one is higher and others lower, but they are able to talk about it, that connect through it and be understanding of how we can have a give and take. There's still this respect component, but for someone who is like, I need my needs to be met, I don't really care too much about how this affects you, then it really, again, falls under that category of harming loved ones, causing distress around affecting one's different areas of one's life.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that, someone who's struggling with sex addiction may say to kind of justify or make themselves feel good about, being an addict?
You'll definitely hear a lot of denial or a lot of tone of dismissing that it's an issue. So comments like, I can't help myself, it's just normal. And stereotypically, it's normal for any man to have such high sex drive. But does that mean that you overlook your spouse's boundaries to do so, right? Or sometimes you hear, it's just porn, it doesn't mean anything, I'm not even with another person. We gotta look deeper into that. It's not, the hiding, the deception, all of that comes into play, but they don't see it that way. For others who do have, unfortunately, pursued an affair, you'll hear things like, the affair didn't mean anything, it was purely just physical, or you aren't giving me any attention, or you're not attending to my needs, so I just had to find a different outlet. So all these different types of excuses and comments is statements that you might hear.
So then, speaking of pornography, what role then does porn play in all of this, in terms of how one becomes an addict?
Yeah, it's big, particularly when we're knowing that if we draw from the knowledge of drugs and alcohol type of addiction, the younger they are exposed to it, it does something to our brain wiring, and it may color, not so much color, but present a non-realistic on reality about what sex and sexual intimacy look like. And that kind of can set a foundation or the expectation, like, this is what it's supposed to be, how it's supposed to look like, and this is what I'm going to pursue. And as we know, pornography is not a real representation of connection, of intimacy. There's a lot of violence, there's a lot of power dynamic, misogyny wrapped up in that. And so that gives, for those who don't understand healthy sexual intimacy, that gives them the image that this is how it should be, and this is what I'm pursuing, and this is okay because everyone's doing it. It's normal.
So flesh that a little more, because I feel like there are people who might not understand when you say pornography is not a good example of like a healthy sexual behavior, right? Because you have a generation now where couples watch porn. That's really common for them to watch porn, right? So how do you then say, well, that's not a healthy example of what healthy sex looks like, or a good example of what healthy sex looks like?
And you're right. In today, there are more couples that are openly talking and openly watching together. And the difference in that aspect is that there's no secret, and there's no going behind one's back, and that everyone has their own preferences and whatnot. But when it becomes this is how sex should be, like what we watch on TV or watch on the internet, it creates almost this expectation that you need to behave this way, I need to behave this way, and that there's no it's not a connecting, it doesn't feel like a very connecting practice, right? And just it also sets a standard that is not realistic. You know, when we're talking about things such as orgasm, arousal, you know, how partners connect. It's just a different reality a lot of times that they present, because their aim is not to represent sex as is, but to give you a to give you entertainment in a way, and also to draw you to continue to consume their product.
So it sounds like that. So I like what you said, that I guess maybe the way to differentiate this is pornography is for entertainment, right? Which means that people are performing, right? It's almost like they're in an act. And so, you know, it's all a play going on. Whereas in your own marriage, when it comes to creating that deep intimacy, it can't be performance-based.
Exactly. Performance-based has been one of the aspects that made couples, per individuals, feel very insecure about themselves, right? And like, I don't look like that, my body's not that, I don't function like that, and creates a lot of doubt. And that impacts our ability to be present with the ones we love. And, you know, having that connection of romance, the connection of the heart-to-heart connection, those are not elements in pornography. Pornography is the act, the sexual act itself, and that is what they are selling.
So then this brings me to this next question, because I know that there are villagers who are going to be saying, okay, but what if your partner is not having sex with you? Would that make you become an addict? Would that make you turn to pornography and then become an addict? Do you find that?
No, that I can't. So this is more personal observation rather than research or literature. I don't think it can justify a person of becoming an addict. That talks more of a deeper issue that we can talk about. It's like, how's communication being made? How is, you know, the relationship, and are we able to be vulnerable with one another? And those are more of the aspects that I'm looking out for, trying to listen to. I have not yet encountered anyone who says, I've become a sex addict because my spouse does not want to, you know, come along with me. And no.
All right. So is it possible to stop being a sex addict?
So this is a very curious question that I'm also looking into. It's treatable. That's the positive I can give out. It's treatable. It takes work, it takes effort, it takes conscious decision and support from others. Is it possible to stop being an addict is almost the same question as we pose if someone can stop being a drug addict or an alcoholic, right? And for each individual, it's their unique battle with the temptation, unique battle with the urges, and how they learn to self-regulate, how they learn to cope in a more healthy way. So I've seen success stories where people are no longer being dragged by their urges, dragged by the addiction. They can still tell me that they have the thoughts that come about, or sometimes they feel triggered about it, but they're not acting on it. So would you say that they stop being an addict? I would say behavioral wise, that seems to be that way, because they are able to choose a healthier way of managing their own urges and their own thoughts. But it doesn't eliminate it. It's not like one day you'll have it and the next day it's no longer there, kind of cure.
Right, right. So it sounds like what I'm hearing is that, they can gain some control over the impulse,
Mhm.
right? They can gain control over the impulse, and that will help them to reduce, right, this urge. But there's no science that says that they get completely cured from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So then in that case, how do they go about seeking help? If I'm an addict, how do I go about seeking help? Let's talk about that first.
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest thing is to be able to admit and be honest about it and seek professional help, seek also help in well, it doesn't have to necessarily be a group, but a group does have that component to help people who can you can identify with the struggles, who can identify with a lot of the challenges, and be able to openly communicate. As long as we don't bottle it up inside, it will have less control over us, right, in a sense. And then professional help is key here, because sometimes the addiction has a deeper root in something. It could be tied to a past hurt, tied to an attachment, it could be tied to past sexual abuse, or just the modeling maybe, and could also be tied to anxiety in and of itself. There is some connection between this addictions and anxiety types. So professional counseling is important, and learning to walk day by day on how to counter that. Honesty is a key component. Honest with yourself, honest with others, so that you have accountability. I certainly know that of this one community called Husband Material by Drew Boa is a fantastic resource where people are able to share their stories in a forum manner, and they have what podcasts, they have they host different workshops, gatherings to help men learn to overcome porn and sexual addiction throughout life. And of course, there's also various books. The one that I always fall back to is Unwanted by Jay Stringer, which I think is a fantastic resource for someone who is struggling with unwanted sexual behaviors, which includes sexual addiction.
You've given some really good resources. I think it's as you're talking about resources and about honesty and all of those things, and group. I mean, we know the power that comes with group, right? People with similar stories, it helps to remove some shame, because you know that you're not alone, that other people are struggling as well. So in terms of group, then how can a family member, say a spouse who's dealing, and I'm saying family because based on all that you're sharing in the research, I'm assuming let's say if it's the husband who's the addict, or if it's the wife who's the addict, the other spouse is affected. So of course, then if they have children, those kids are also affected in their home, because the dynamic between the parents have now changed, right?
Yes.
So how can the family also get support? Maybe the other parent getting support.
Absolutely. The spouse, the one that's affected, will typically, I would say, almost across all that I've seen and heard, that they are deeply traumatized and they would need their own professional help if needed. Counseling will be helpful to help you build yourself up again and learn to draw better boundaries or set expectations of what you want going forward, and to make the choice. Do I want to continue, and what does it mean that I want to continue this relationship? What does it mean that I want to continue have relationship with this person? For spouses, there's definitely a community as well for them. There's many who's found a way to build a community, to share the shame, share all the betrayal, share their pain with one another. And that, again, a group or community. Dr. Sherry Keffer started a website called braveone.com, which is a fantastic resource for spouses who've been affected. Seek help. don't enable. I think that's the same type of advice we give those who are dealing with a family member with drug addiction. We don't want to keep it hidden. We don't want to shame, we don't want to attack, but we don't want it to be festering and being quiet to save face in a way, right? Honesty and boundaries are key, and that can be helped in the work with a professional counselor, with a great mentor, with a great friend. Family is a key help, especially healthy family members who can love the betrayed and the faithful one with no judgment, with all the grace and mercy that they can allow one another. Because that's the thing, if we feel judged, if we feel shame, that it reinforces us that we don't want to talk about it, that we want to keep it away from everyone, and then it slowly eats one up from the inside. And I haven't seen any good long-term positive for those who kept quiet about it.
That's very powerful. All right. So you talked about attachment and trauma. So I want to talk about that a little bit in terms of the counseling. So when they're going for counseling, is that something that they're going to be able to work on? Attachment and trauma.
Absolutely. I think the two bigger ones, learning from you as well, Goma, the attachment is a big piece. So we have to learn like what kind of wounds we carry, and how that plays out in our relationship. How are we now replaying some of the pain or the hurt, or the just trying to make sense of it? We carry with us a core belief about ourselves a lot of times when it comes to attachment, right? And so when we experience something as this type of level of betrayal, it's traumatic. It can make us feel stuck and make us remind us of our the negative belief that just brought that up. So trauma work is key here. EMDR is a great one that we use to help uncover and heal from those attachment wounds. And this goes for both the betrayer and as well as the faithful spouse. They both are affected. There's nobody that is unaffected by this, right? And that's saying you are the one with the problem, so you need counseling. No, you can definitely help become stronger yourself and be very capable of voicing your needs and boundary setting, healthy boundaries, and being able to say to yourself, this is the type of relationship I want, or this is the type of relationship I don't want. So it's a lot to unpack. I know I just rambled off, but attachment and trauma plays hand in hand with this type of presenting concern.
Yeah, no, I mean, you weren't rumbling. It's true. The truth is that, right, the way we learn how to bond is the way we keep bonding throughout our lifespan until we learn another way to do it. So I remember working years ago with someone who had a very unhealthy sense of self. And this person was very addicted to prostitutes. And a lot of work had to be done in terms of attachment, because that unhealthy sense of self came from childhood. So for every prostitute, this person got engaged with, they will enjoy the moment, but then they will leave with so much shame and regret, and then feel worse about self again, and then go back to the prostitutes. So it just continues, right?
Yes.
So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think it's important for people to be able to say, okay, so I can get group. We talked about group. I can get help from going to groups. I can get help by doing my trauma work. What else would you say they could do? What else in terms of faith? Because we're faith-based platform.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In the faith arena, I'm really encouraged to see a shift in the way we approach those who are hurt by sexual addiction, sexual traumas, and pornography use, all of that. And in the past, there's been a lot of reinforcement of shame, don't do it, and that you described right there, the binge purge type of dynamic. It reinforces that. Churches who are healthy and have a way of to approach this, they come with the Christ-like grace and mercy, but we don't keep you there. They still hold you accountable with love, knowing that, you know, hey, you are struggling. We're there with you. We want you to confess. We want you to be able to put in efforts, and we'll support you and provide guidance. God is central. I think, you know, we are all broken people, and some of us are affected by different brokenness, including for this sexual addiction, right? And so giving over to God our sin, being able to confess and know that, you know, there's healing that can come, but it's not like I'm going to pray and then we get healing. It's a process. We're learning, and then we're growing in that aspect. So we do find a healthy church that's open about topics like these and not quiet about it, and introduce that at home too. We're standing in our faith. I want our marriage to be reflective of Christ's love. And so how do we practice that? And it's not just words. It's not just saying, oh, I'm going to change, but actually taking the steps and, you know, really confronting the sin.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. This has been so helpful, Christopher. And I think the village is going to benefit from it. So is there anything that I didn't ask that you feel like is important for the village to know in terms of sex and addiction, and how it affects marriages?
It's a good question. I can't think of anything specific. We touched on a lot of areas, and these were great questions to give us an overview. I'll just say that this is not an easy thing to overcome, and requires almost patience of a different level. But love and marriage this is not a death sentence. Maybe that's what I'm not say. This is not a death sentence to a marriage. I've seen couples who have been able to overcome and become even stronger in their faith, their openness, and inspiring others and helping others. But also for those who choose to stay married, right? They know that this is going to be a lifelong journey to work together, and it can be more be enriching in the fact that they are no longer hiding from one another, but they are able to be, you know, like Adam and Eve as they were, naked but not ashamed in front of one another.
That's right. I love this. Well, again, village, this is Dr. Christopher Chang. He has been talking to us about sex addiction and how it affects marriages. I think he gave us a lot of good information to work with, lots of good resources. So listen to the podcast, and also read the books. Read the books, find the research, watch the videos that he suggested, all of his suggestions, take them seriously, and you'll be able to help your marriage. Again, don't forget to share the video with others. Come back and watch our next installment that will be speaking with another expert in the field, and just really helping you to strengthen your marriage. May God bless you. May God keep your home safe. And may all that you all dream for your family, for your marriage, may they all come to fruition as God sees just. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.